Thank you. Good evening, everybody. This is the Town of Auburn Finance Committee. Today is April 1st, 2026. Allow me to call the meeting to order. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely. Consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, dial 1-408-650-3123 and use access code 983-263-437. Or the public can join via computer at meet.goto.com/Auburn Select Board Room. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Is anyone else present recording the meeting? Seeing none. The only person we have appearing remotely this evening is our DPW Director, Joanna Paquin, and we will actually kick off a second item on our agenda, which is a transfer from DPW.
Chair, I move to take the three as one.
We have a motion to take the three, which are all coming from the same account, that facility supervisor account as one.
Second.
And we have a second from Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so this is from DPW Highway. We have three, as I said, transfers coming from facility supervisor. The first one, in the amount of $10,000 going to the overtime account. Reason given, this transfer is for future overtime. The next one, $325, conference meetings, going to conference meetings education. This is transfers for dues and tolls on the Mass Pike. And the last one, in the amount requested, $2,500, going to training. Reason given, transfer is for stormwater training. Joanna, can you give us some insights on these transfers?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. So the first one that we're looking for is the $10,000 for overtime. We've had some additional overtime over the last few months because of potholes. So that account is low. It's not in deficit, but it's low. And we're looking to cover any additional overtime relative to highway, in addition to covering the Memorial Day parade and hopefully the 4th of July.
Any questions on this particular one while we're on the $10,000 one? No? Okay, the meetings and conference, that seems pretty straightforward. Do we do a lot of traveling on the turnpike for DPW vehicles, or is this for?
Not so much during the warmer weather, but there's only one asphalt plant open, and I forget the town that it's in, but we have to travel over Mass Pike to get hot mix during the winter. So the tolls for the Mass Pike should slow down, but we do have two dues that are due for associations in the next couple of months that total $250.
Okay, and lastly, the stormwater, the training for the stormwater?
Yeah, so that's for certifications and licenses. We have some certifications that are due, and those require continuing education, so it would cover the training for that.
Do you have a question on it?
Just through the chair, my question is, are these like unforeseen trainings and certifications due to new employees or something else, or?
So a lot of times we have, it's usually covered, but this year we had several of our employees needing to go through the CDL training. So earlier in the year we had transfers to cover that, but it definitely left us short in that account.
Any additional questions on these?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve and a second from Patrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you.
Next transfer is from the assessor's office, coming from the clerical account. Amount requested $2,000, and going to the update reval account. Reason given, data collection services. Sir, how are you this evening?
Good evening. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, so we're requesting the transfer because of the extremely cold winter. We weren't able to get out and do a lot of inspections. And also, we lost our clerk who did inspections as well right in the beginning of January. So we're pretty far behind on the inspections and just going to contract out and catch up.
Just to clarify, is the 2,000 just going to be between the contract out and the extra time needed? There really isn't a specific, is it specifically for outsource?
I would say, for the most part, it's for the outsource, yeah. Yep.
Any additional questions?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Patrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
Okay, first budget on our agenda this evening is the school department. I see we have Dr. Chamberlain and Stanek. Are you coming up, or are you going to? Okay.
Your last budget presentation.
It is the last one. It's a good thing. Change is good. So it's nice to see you all. Thank you for having me back. Yes, for my last one. I always say, my secretary jinxed me a little bit with last one, best one, because we've had quite the winter, if you can imagine, with the calls. So anyway, I'm happy to be here to talk about our budget this evening, and we'll start by thanking the support that I've received from the town through this process. It's never easy, as you well know better than anyone. So we continue to focus on our mission, our vision, and our commitment to our kids, making sure that all kids feel safe and welcome in our schools, and that we are meeting their needs both academically and socially. This is driven by the three big buckets in our strategic plan: teaching and learning, health, wellness, and safety, and our community partnerships, each of which drive what we do. Those are our big focus areas. This will be something that will be redone in the coming year. I didn't think it was appropriate for me to redo it as I was leaving, so big job for the next superintendent. The school committee priorities stay consistent as they normally do, really focusing on our class sizes, anti-bullying and training and resources associated with that, focusing on the social emotional health of our kids. We know if they're not feeling well and safe and secure in themselves, they can't learn. We work to make sure our contractual obligations are met, and that our faculty and staff feel respected and supported. We have very low turnover, which is a good thing. And we want to respect the financial support that we've gotten from all of you and from the townspeople of Auburn and from town leadership. Our initial budget was at 4.19. You'll see we're down now to 3.92. That was at the request of the town, meeting the needs of the town in relation to the overall budget that would be put forward to the townspeople. We believe that this still maintains our class size recommendations, but it will require that we will not be filling some positions. So we have a retirement at the high school that will not be filled, a retirement at the middle school that will not be filled. We're going to transfer a teacher potentially from the middle school to Swanson. We have 2 retirements at Swanson Road. One will not be filled, the other will be moved to Bryn Mawr based on, again, our enrollment to make sure our class size stay appropriate. An LPN is going to be changed to a partial RN is going to be a full-time RN, but we're losing an LPN position. Our English language tutors are going to decrease by 1, and you will hear more about this, but we have 2 Title I positions that are noted now at $1. We found out recently that our Title I funding is going to be significantly cut for next year, so I'll get to that in a minute. And we have no new positions. As we normally do, we've used our October 1st enrollment. Our Chapter 70 money has increased by 1%. It's at the $75 per student. If you recall, early last year, that's what the state had said. We were going to get the $75 per student. They ultimately changed it to $150 per student. There are no indications that's going to happen this year, even though there is great lobbying for that to do so. So our Chapter 70 money is only going up by about $175,000. Our circuit breaker, we anticipate conservatively at about 70%. We've projected Medicaid reimbursement. It's up a little bit from last year, from 160 to 170,000. And this is where our Title I grant funding comes in. We are going to see a $150,000 decrease due to a federal calculation determining that our poverty rate is below 5%. That's one of the big determining factors that they use to give your Title I award. I will tell you that since I've been here, we've hovered around $250,000. That's what we've gotten for Title I. So when we received this information from the Department of Ed, we were shocked. So we scheduled an appointment with our liaison, which we have through our grant, through their grant department. And what she said was they use, of course, it's a very complicated calculation. So it goes back to the 2020 census, and then there's SNAP information that they use that's updated as of 2024. So this is all based on like data that's 3 years old. But we went from 6.17% poverty rate for this current year down to 4.8%. Now, these are all estimations, but what DESE has told us is that typically their calculations are pretty solid. So it looks like about a $150,000 cut, could be a little bit more than that, could be less than that, but they feel like that's a solid number for us to go by, and they definitely advised us to adjust our budget accordingly. We do have some carryover money for Title I for this year, and we're hoping that once we get the award, we may be able to maintain these two positions. That's why we left them in there at $1, but felt like it was only prudent to plan for not having them, just in case. We've level funded all our other grant monies using the amounts from FY26, so the 240 grant and the Title II grants. Our supplies have been level funded. You've heard me say this each year I've come before you. So are our supplies really level funded? No, our supplies have really been cut each year, because particularly this year with pricing going up. Our busing application fees will provide a $200,000 offset. We did increase our fee last year a little bit, so that helps somewhat. We use our offsets from our revolving accounts: building rentals, Satellite and Galaxy, music and fine arts, athletics, tuition. I will tell you that Mrs. Stanek has done tremendous work on building an electronic system for our building rentals, and I think ultimately we'll finally see some funding coming back from that. Things are being billed, funded, and documented very much better than when it was done kind of by this person or that person. It's now all documented in the system, so I think that will help us somewhat as well. And we've budgeted for 87 school choice slots for next year. We've anticipated a 5% increase in special ed school tuitions. All contractual obligations are noted here. However, we are negotiating right now with custodians, secretaries, and instructional assistants. And then you get into utilities. So that's another complicated area. For electricity and natural gas, we are in partnership with the town, so we'll be going through negotiations for that, trying to find a good rate for that. We have a company that we go through to do that, and again, we're coupled with the town. Our oil pricing goes through the French River Collaborative. Our director of facilities had a meeting recently, and people are pretty horrified by what they're hearing for what the potential price could be. The only thing we have going for us is that we do have a supply left from the last contract that may help to offset some of the pricing, so we may be okay for the coming year. Our rooftop arrays, we continue to reduce our electrical costs using those. So we have a total in offsets of $3,685,802 in this budget. I did give you a little snapshot of our enrollment, and you'll see since 2018, there's been a gradual decline. That's not unusual. Districts across the state are seeing that. There are just families are having fewer kids, and we're seeing it across the board, and certainly lower enrollment also impacts our funding. However, you'll see our special education enrollment since the 2020-2021 school year has increased dramatically. And that also has an impact on the funding we need to support kids. Last year, we did add 2 special educators because of our enrollment, and we continue to watch that. So overall, you'll recall, we received a significant amount of money when we had our English learners that were placed here in town. That funding is gone. It had to be used. Our special education enrollment continues to rise, and this year we have 2 residential placements, which we've not had previously, which are extremely expensive. We've not heard any rumblings that our IDEA money will be cut, so we're going to hope that this year, last year, if you recall, I was worried about all of that federal grant funding. We didn't know where we stood. Seemingly, IDEA is going to stay, but again, Title I is really up for grabs. Our student enrollment is going down, and so we're trying to adapt to that. Our Chapter 70 money, there's been a lot of lobbying to increase that. That just hasn't happened. And again, our utilities are going out to bid. Just as a little historical piece, in the FY25, we went down 2 positions. In '26, we went down 4, and this year we're going down 6. Again, with the hope that we're doing this strategically. If I felt like any of this was going, you always want more staff with kids, right? More staff with kids means things are, groups are smaller. But I also feel like the parameters that we've set for ourselves over the year, we're going to be able to maintain, given what we have for enrollment and what we can see in the future. Now, I will tell you, Topograph, for life, I can't remember the name of that. It's just a terrible marketing choice, I think. But anyway, Topograph, the big housing development, we've not seen the number of students that we had anticipated at this point. I think at this point, we're around 20. Now I know they're not fully open yet and all of that, but I think back in the projections, they were saying 69 students. We haven't seen anywhere near that much of an increase, so hopefully that stays. The town manager had asked me to speak about discretionary and non-discretionary. I will tell you, when I talk about schools, it's really hard to find anything that's discretionary. It seems like we need everything. So I did give you some information about that. We are largely a payroll department, right? That's where the bulk of our funding goes, is to our people. But it seems like 97.2% is non-discretionary, roughly. And if we look at discretionary kind of things, when you look at school supplies, after-school programs, legal services, commencement, crossing guards, and translators, I guess they're not contractual. There's no law necessarily that says we have to have them, but boy, would we be in trouble without them. So it really does speak to how we run our schools. So finally, we're presenting a budget of $33,968,107. It's roughly a $1.2 million increase. I've already noted the number of offsets, so it relates to a 3.92% overall increase over last year. And as always, we are grateful for your support, for that of town administration, for the select board, and for the townspeople. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
Can I ask a non-budget question?
Sure.
So a couple of years ago, I think it was, they did there was the thing about MCAS. And for many years, we heard about teaching to the test. So since you're on your way, you could
Say whatever I want.
probably more freely than you usually could. I was just wondering how that's affecting everything, and if it affects everything.
Yeah, so that I think it was question 2. That really impacts our high school, right? Because at all the other grade levels, that test, the kids are still required to take the tests. And actually, they're still required to take it at the high school level. What that question did was it said it's no longer a requirement to graduate. So as you can imagine, we've seen a lot of students who are not extremely motivated to do well on that assessment. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of things that, I know we don't want to rate ourselves against one another, right? But there is some value in a standardized bar, right? Some bar that you can say, did we meet it or did we not? Right now, we don't have that. And it's challenging, The state is now talking about different graduation requirements tied to specific coursework. There's a lot of scuttlebutt about that it's just going to be a different version of the MCAS, and the voters said they didn't want it. So I don't know how it's going to play out, but I will tell you that from an educational standpoint, do I want to torture kids by making them take a test? I don't. But do we need to have some kind of a common bar when you're looking at the difference between communities and resources and all of that, yet want all kids to succeed? I think we need something. I do. So I think it's been detrimental.
And how does because the federal government has also done its own Department of Education.
Barely.
trying to shut it down essentially. And so how does that trickle down to local town education?
So towns have made their own decisions about the curriculum that they teach for a long time. That hasn't come down from the federal government, even though that's been part of the statement about getting rid of that department, that it should be, you know, the decision of the towns with what they teach to kids. That's always been the case. But it's been the ruse, I think, to say that, well, this is what we're going to do away with. Now towns have that authority. We've always had that authority. In large part now, I think it's hitting a lot of people who have funding for higher education and that kind of thing through the Department of Education. But in large part, that has not impacted us. At the beginning of the year, there was some, they have put some parameters on us wanting to sign things saying that we, you know, we're fair to everyone and that kind of thing, and that was taken care of at the state level. But that hasn't had a big impact on us because we primarily are run by the state, except for the federal funding, which is Title I. Yeah.
I could ask more, but I'll stop.
Additional questions?
So I feel like I've been on this committee far too long to be asking these kinds of questions for the first time this year, but the presentation mentions like 3.6 million in offsets. When you talk about the budget, we typically, for better or worse, really only care about what's going to hit the tax levy. Does the 33,968 include those offsets, and then you subsequently get them back later? Or does that number not include the offsets? And-
Correct. That's, so really, if you added those in, it would be more like 36.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I guess for context, have those offsets decreased over the last few years? Like, I'm seeing Ms. Stanek nod yes, but the reason I'm asking this question is because we see an increase, but in reality, it may not be an actual increase to the budget of the school department, because if your offsets are going down, even though the tax levy portion of the budget might be going up, fundamentally, you guys have less money to work with that's coming from anywhere else. So I just want to, I guess, sort of highlight that, because it's something I've missed over the last few years and haven't really fully understood. So I don't know if you have, like, off the top of your head, any indication of how much the offsets have gone down, but I am curious.
I don't think, do you have that off the top of your head? Yeah, I don't think you have that off
It's
the top
okay.
of your head.
I didn't expect you to be clear.
Yeah. I will say, you bring up a good point. When I talked about classroom supplies, we've level funded them since I've been in this role. And that's not the only thing we've level funded. So for instance, curriculum competitions, right? We have some amazing academic teams at our high school. We the People, we have a math team, we have a number of them, right, that go out for things. Again, those have stayed level funded. However, the fees to enter the competitions have gone up. Transportation has gone up exponentially. We hit our transportation contract bid a couple years ago. Honestly, at the time, we thought it was a scary time to do it, much scarier to be doing it now. However, when you're booking a one-of bus, right, you get hit there with the increase in the fees. So there are a number of areas that we have kept as is over the last few years, and so that's a cut. You know, we've taken that hit.
The expectation is that people will fundraise and whatever else, and
We use our student,
ultimately
student
we're just
activities.
putting obligations on the students to pay for their own education, which is spectacular.
And on the advisors that now have to facilitate all of that instead of focusing on what they'd like to be doing. So, yeah, great point.
So I thought it was interesting in your presentation that the enrollment's gone down, and you said that's kind of across the board. My wife being a special education teacher, that's dear to my heart, so that increase in special education, is that across the board as well? Are we seeing that increase continue kind of globally, or is that due
Yeah,
to COVID, would you think, or what do you think is driving that number?
Yeah, I'd hate to speculate, honestly. I do think in some ways we're getting better at identifying special needs. You know, in the last few years, dyslexia has been a big one, right? That there's been a lot of research and a lot of effort paid to, as well it should be, right? So some of those things that we're getting that more granular and fine-tuned at the needs of students, I think is part of it. And I think to some degree, the social emotional well-being of kids is keeping them back from being able to access their ability. That's been a huge lift, and I'm sure your wife would attest to that as well, being in the schools. It's really challenging right now with what kids are facing, the depression, anxiety, all those things. You can't learn if that's what's going on in your head. So I can't speak for other districts, but we have seen, a part of it, I think, is too, our special education department has a very good reputation for meeting the needs of kids, and that's a small, even though it's a big community, it's a small community, right? Special education families communicate with one another to say, you know, Auburn does a nice job with kids, so that's part of it too.
And so I guess you would consider that trend's going to probably continue in the future. So we should probably be aware of that, and the resources needed are probably going to grow in that area over the next couple of years at least, I would imagine.
Yeah, I will say, my biggest concern in that area are students that require that high level of outplacement, meaning not a collaborative placement, but a residential placement. For us to have 2 right now that's huge for us. You know, those schools can run from 250,000 to 400 and upwards a year. So that's devastating. We've accessed our special education stabilization last year and this year. So we have to figure that out too, because we don't know what comes ahead. We have students move in they can move in at any time, and you have no idea they're coming, you know?
I'm glad you brought up the stabilization. Do you have an update on where we are with that, and we're still making the contributions towards that special ed stabilization?
So we're working with the town right now to see how that all came about, quite frankly, and to see how we can build that back up. We still have about $360,000, I think, in there, so we're not near depleting it by any means, but at the beginning, like last year, I think it was more like $659,000.
Yeah, I'd be curious to bring up what that, I was on that planning, but I can't remember what the plan was for.
Yeah, so we just talked about it the other day, so.
My other question, you brought up transportation. How many years into the contract are we?
Yeah, we have 2 more years, right, or 3?
We have a 3-year contract with 2 one-year extensions. So we're in year 2, close to 11, so yeah.
Yeah.
School choice, I bring it up every year. I'm not 100% convinced that it's a good value for us. I understand that when you're taking off of the totals here, it's an offset, I guess, towards, but I'm still not convinced that the amount we're allowed to charge by the state to the families coming into town really is the true value of a cost of education that a resident of the town is paying through taxes and all the other things we see that go along with benefits and the true cost of things. Can you just give us an update on where we are with school choice students in the school district?
Yeah, I think right now we have about 74 looking to go up for next school year based on our enrollment. So it's a double-edged sword, right? Because our Chapter 70 money is driven by student enrollment as well. So it's a complicated thing. But I will tell you that, given that, and I don't know when we started doing school choice, honestly, off the top of my head, but that's been an area that we've relied on funding now for a long time related to the budget.
But it is an unknown, right, in terms of, you don't know who the student is that's coming in. So when you talk about hidden costs, special education costs potentially, if our services are, which I love the Auburn schools, I mean, are going to be of a better quality than their home community, it only makes sense that those families would be applying to get their child into school choice, to get the better services from Auburn. So I guess I have, you know, I brought this up every year.
No, I know, but I think that would be some good data that Mrs. Stanek can bring along the next time, because I won't be here, but to look at it through the lens of, you know, how many are special education? I don't have that off the top of my head. It's a small number, but nonetheless, I think it would be a good one to look at.
Patrick?
I just was curious, Auburn Youth and Family Services is here, and you're here, and it sort of triggered in my mind that I know over the last couple of years, they provided a lot of services, or they provide services in addition to your staff to help your students to get the best potential. So we'll make that sort of a blanket statement. I'm just curious if the school, I know that the town has looked for ways, does the education system have access to grants, or do you search for opportunities to help reimburse Auburn Youth and Family Services to possibly reduce the burden on the taxpayers as well, given that it's being routed through the school system as opposed to being through the town?
We have not looked specifically for that. I will tell you that we look for grants all the time. I think if there were one that stood out that would fit that bill, we would certainly look at it, because Auburn Youth and Family Services has become a key player in our day-to-day functioning, for sure. They meet the needs of so many students that we just don't have enough staff to do that in ways that are more nuanced, right? Kids that would probably be okay if they didn't get that kind of attention that they need, but certainly do much better when they get it. Things like, groups for kids of divorce, loss, those kind of things. They're an integral part of what we do. So I will certainly put that on the radar of the assistant superintendent and the new superintendent coming in.
Which was the intent of the question. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, they're fantastic. I can't say enough about them. We couldn't do what we do without them.
They're a great service, not only to the school, but to the town itself, so thank you.
I guess build on Patrick's question, though, and it's always been kind of, and we'll bring it up when Auburn Youth comes before us, it's solely their budget gets directed to Auburn Youth and Family Services, and Auburn Youth and Family Services say, we're here to support the schools. It seems like we're doing a little bit of an end around to make the same, why isn't that budget under your budget if it's services for students in town, or is it something that should be applied in-house, that the school department could hire the professionals to deliver those services?
Yeah, so we have guidance counselors and we have social workers, and we have school psychologists, right? So school psychologists primarily do a lot of our testing for special education. Our social workers kind of navigate that other level of kids. They might have a little bit more need, but they also have those connections to what services in the community. To me, Auburn Youth and Family Services hits another niche altogether, right? That's really more focused on that mental health component, like the true mental health kind of things. And certainly, I guess it could be that way, but that's not all they do, is the schools. They do a lot more for the community that fill another gap, I think, in this community that schools don't normally. When you look at the food pantry and the clothing closet and some of the counseling they do for families and all of those things, and the resources they provide to get other resources from other places. I don't know the history and how it all came to be that we have Auburn Youth and Family Services, but quite frankly, I think every town should have one. And I think the collaboration is a good one. Sometimes kids need that separation. They need things that, number one, maybe shouldn't happen in school, but if they do have to happen in school, they need it to happen with someone other than the people they see every single day. There's a whole fine balance you run there with mental health. So I think the partnership works great. But certainly, everything can be improved and changed. So along the way, there may be ways to make that better, but I see it working very well right now.
I just had one more thing that I wanted to share, because I am a nerd and did some research the other day. Auburn, obviously, I think people in town agree, has excellent schools. I don't think that we would consider ourselves like an average school system across the state. I know that the budget comes up every year and is often like a hot topic because it's a large budget, and it is prepared in a slightly different way than the rest of our budgets. I just wanted to point out to anybody who has concerns about the amount of money that we spend on the school system, that if you actually look at the numbers, Auburn spends less per student than many of our peer communities. We spend less, I believe we are in the bottom 50%. Like we're close to 50, but we're not in the top half. And I think most people would agree that our schools are definitely at minimum in the top half of schools in the state. So I understand it's not a perfect apples to oranges comparison. Cities and towns are all different and whatever else. But, anyone who looks at this budget and thinks that you guys are not doing great work is a lunatic. And I just want to make that very clear. Like we have an excellent school system. That school system is one of the primary drivers of people wanting to live in Auburn, the property values, whatever else. and we spend less on our schools than, as a parent of a child in kindergarten, I would like to be spending on schools. So I'll just stress that in your final presentation, I thank you for all the work that you've done. Thank you for these presentations, because they are the model, I think, that Kevin, I'm not going to speak for him, but probably had in mind when he started saying every department should come in front of us and have a presentation on what they do and what they want and how it all goes. And we very much appreciate the work that you do, and Ms. Stanek as well, and in putting together budgets that, support the town and the students and everybody else. So, thank you.
I appreciate those kind words. I will tell you, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has all of that information easily accessible.
It is extraordinarily easy.
Up,
yeah.
down, and sideways, they will analyze things for folks
Very
to
easy to
see.
sort, if you'd like to sort by population, spending by student, and whatever else. So
Exactly.
I encourage anyone who has any questions about the school budget to go ahead and compare us to some other towns.
Likewise, I reach out to folks all the time and say, if you have a question, come and ask, because we are open for business. We want to collaborate with our community. We see the town as our customer, right? And we want to do right by the money that we're given. So I appreciate those words, and I know it is a lot of money, but it takes a lot of money to have a good school system, so.
Absolutely.
Any additional questions? Andrew?
Just have one more. So with you, retiring, and again, like Michael said, and everybody said, thank you for everything. I guess if you kind of had a blank pen on this budget, obviously other than hiring a one-to-one teacher for everybody, what do you see us needing to focus on for the school system in the coming years, in your opinion? I'd be interested in knowing that as we go forward, as Dr. Skaza comes in, it would probably be good to help, give him an idea of what the vision should be for our school system. Where would you focus?
So we have been fortunate over the last few years that we have, our curriculum are all updated, right? So we have a new English language curriculum, reading, we're updating things at our high school. So that can be a really big expense. I will say, after the last few years of the gradual cuts in staff, there's going to have to be let's hold back a little bit there. That's going to be a big area of concern for sure. And I think some investment in professional development is going to be really important, because as you pare down, right, people have to be more skilled. And I think we've done a good job of bringing in some good professional development, where we've done a train-the-trainer model. So for Universal Design for Learning, we now have 10 UDL coaches. So we don't have to go out and hire somebody all the time for that. Same thing with restorative practices. We have 2 trainers in district, so now we don't have to hire Suffolk University to come in. But that's only going to take us so far, right? If you're going to continue to grow, you're going to need to do that. So professional development is another area, and we've gone through our CIP as well. Some of our buildings, and we are, again, the town has been generous with what's been given to us, but just for instance, our fields are fantastic.
You're preaching to the choir about the field quality, but
Yeah.
Believe me and Ms. Stanek have had a lot of email discourse back and forth
Yeah,
about the
yeah.
field, so I fully agree with you there.
But the usage they get,
Yeah.
that costs money, right? And then who are we charging? Little League, town-based, then you get into this other circle, right? That you're chasing the same money from the same people for those things. So I think an overall look at how that's all managed and what's available in the town, because this town, they love their athletics and their kids, and our kids are involved, and that's fantastic. But that comes at a price too. So I think some thought's got to be given there.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Beth, just a thank you for all the years and tremendous work. You brought up a couple times, and I don't want to sort of bring on a down note, but it's not a down note. It is a financial question that's been raised out in the community, unfortunately, on social media, relative to some of the
My
smaller...
favorite thing, social media.
The smaller revolving accounts, and can you just explain some of that and what
Oh, related to student activities, you mean?
Please.
Yes, okay. So, for several years, from our auditor, it had noted that we have 3 ways that our student activities accounts are tracked. We have an internal spreadsheet by sub-account, right? So, we the people, student council, those kind of things. So we have that. We have Munis, and then we have the bank, right? All 3 of those should match, when you total them all up. Well, our auditors indicated that they didn't match. So the first step had to be for the town to match the bank account to Munis, and that was a town responsibility because that's what they reconcile. So last January, they did that. The next step was we had to match this spreadsheet so that each of these little sub-accounts knew exactly what they had for money. So we were advised we kind of had to stop the bleeding. So we made some major adjustments just to say, we can't spend over, I think it was $106,000, something like that. That's what was in the bank for all of our student activities account. After that, we were advised by the auditors, and we were working through auditors through this whole thing. We talked about it, and Mrs. Stanek went back to 2019, went through every transaction in Munis, and matched it to what was in these, manually kept spreadsheets. And so what resulted is, she went through each account. We've met with each advisor on the account, because some of the advisors also kept their own records, right? So she went through what she found. We met with each of them, the principal and the treasurer, and determined what did we believe was the actual amount that they should have. Now, within that, we found lots of errors, which helped to resolve the discrepancy that the auditor found. So, for instance, one of them put a deposit on a hotel in Worcester for the prom. Well, in the spreadsheet, it was put in the deposit column. Well, it wasn't a deposit, right? It was a payment. Well, now you have to take the $2,500 out, and you have to take it out again, okay? So there's a $5,000 discrepancy. So that's a big one, and there were plenty of little ones. There were also formula errors in the spreadsheet that had built up over years that needed to be adjusted. And so the result at the high school was, so there were also several sub-accounts that were old. There was supposedly money listed in this spreadsheet, but the organization didn't function anymore. So we got approval to close those out. That resulted in a change of about $2,600. And then the balance, to make these spreadsheets now balance Munis and the bank, was taken out of the interest that we earn on the account itself. And so both the high school and the middle school will go to school committee on the 8th for final approval. But we now know that we have it balanced in the same manner. No one took any money, but what happened was, this is like, juggling cats. When you're getting in all these deposits from different places and trying to make sure that everything goes and is charted accordingly. We've now not only going through this audit, but we've completely revamped the procedures that go along with it. So the treasurers, which are there's a secretary at each building, every month they give the advisor a statement from their sub-account to say, this is what it's showing for a balance now, do you agree? And then at the beginning of every year, we're going to do that as well with each advisor, because sometimes advisors change, so we're going to do that at the beginning of every year. Mrs. Stanek has also spent a ton of time working with Unipay so that we can do more things electronically, right? So that we're not handling checks and cash and those kind of things. People can pay their class dues online. People can pay for field trips online. People can pay all those things online, so that'll take a lot of that out. But there are a number of, numerous checks and balances now, so we don't end up in this boat again. But no one stole any money. No one, Mrs. Stanek nor myself, were we taking money to supplement our budget. We weren't doing that. But it was a mess. It was a long-standing mess that had been in place for a number of years and needed to be cleaned up. And as painful as it was for Mrs. Stanek, I kept saying, but when you get through this, it's going to be better. So every advisor has signed off and agreed on what they believe is the balance, and we have now completely balanced with Munis and the bank.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking to that.
I would just like to, again, point out for anyone who might be watching at home or listening, there are audits. That's happening already. Any lunacy about additional audits or extra audits or like super secret audits that's not how this works. There are people in place and laws in place that govern all of this already. And thank you for sharing all of that information. Hopefully that will.
And just to add on, so just today, now that we've balanced at both the high school and the middle school, we reached out to the auditors to say, we want you to look at the records and see what we did. So we're going to have them come back in for that as well.
Patrick?
Since it was discussed, there was a comment that you had revamped and auditors had their hands on it. Are the policies that are in place, are those driven by the Auburn school system or the recommendations of the auditor? I'm just curious. For instance, it's my area of expertise. So if you have an audit and you say we're going to do it annually, I don't necessarily agree with that. If you have an individual that's responsible for a movement of money and that person should give their notice in the middle of the year, I think an audit should be done just before they leave, and a new person should be given a fresh air. This is going to be your baby now. This is how much you have. Just a lifetime of experience in audit. We can be careful, but if we put things off and we don't have benchmarks in the right place for the right reasons, a policy is worthless.
Well, so that's the reason for implementing the practices of the monthly statements to each of the people who are actually taking in and using this money. And then the yearly, beginning of the year. We didn't want to do it at the end of the year because sometimes things like a senior class, those bills don't shake out until
Right,
July.
sure, into the middle of summer or the fall.
Right.
Sure, exactly.
So we're going to do it at the start of each year with, again, with each of the advisors to say, okay, let's look at this. This is what you're starting with.
I just think that the players meeting your school system know everything a little bit more clearer than the auditors, so though they do recommend, I would think you'd weigh in on your own policies to make sure that you're being careful as well.
Sure, sure. And
Sometimes they're
actually,
more
those are,
blanket.
go ahead, Jen, come on up, because she lived this whole thing.
So as you speak to the policies and procedures, and we have a policy and procedure manual, which is based on Mass General Law, as well as all of the recommendations from MASs, as well as the Massachusetts Association of Business Officials. And so it is put together with all of that, and then also what makes sense for us. We have an external audit every 3 years and an internal audit every year.
If I could, for full disclosure, on the Finance Committee years back when the embezzlement with the vocational school system happened, I don't know if you're familiar with it, it's not the meeting to bring it up, but that embezzlement was over $13 million, and it started with a $1,000 revolving account. So you can never be too careful, even with $1,000, because it can bleed. So again, I'm not questioning the integrity, I'm not questioning the policy, I'm just saying that we're humans and we have the ability to look at a process and look at it and make sure that we are protecting the integrity of what's really being done. Don't just let it happen, because that's how that happened.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Chamberlain?
I had one which you may or may not want to discuss, but we talked about the fields earlier, and there's been some discussion about the golf course and the enterprise fund, and if it should stay an enterprise fund, or if perhaps it should expand to cover the fields and stuff like that, which would obviously impact the schools, because the schools control most, I don't really know, most of the fields, not all of the fields. And I was just wondering what your perspective is on that.
Yeah, so I will tell you that I'm not going to say too much about that because I don't know too much about the enterprise account and all of that. What I will say is that we take care of, well, I shouldn't even say we take care of. So the fields at the high school and middle school, the turf fields, we provide the maintenance for those, right? So when they need, if there's a tear or, I don't know, they need to tamp them or whatever they do, there are things that they have to do to maintain them. So we take care of that. But the grass fields are maintained by the DPW. So even our softball field at Auburn High School is maintained by the DPW. So that's, we don't maintain, like the Bryn Mawr Field, we don't do, Swanson Field, we don't do, that's maintained by the DPW.
I mean, do you think it would, there's also, because I think, because the basketball courts are also being used by outside leagues. So would it make sense for the school to not actually have to schedule that and work with somebody that's, you know, in charge of recreation? Or would you think that would be unworkable?
Well, it is the thing is we get a little protective about our teams, so that's where it gets dicey, right? Because we have to put our teams first, our school teams, right? They need to make sure they have access for the gym. It gets tricky around playoff time. You don't know if you're in playoffs. So by us having control of the use of that, we make sure that our teams get what they need. That being said, I'm going to tell you that this job, and she can speak to it better than I can, The job of juggling this is it's a huge task.
Nightmare.
A huge task, because of the way teams have to schedule and all of that. So, and some folks can speak to the job that it is that are up on the board. And, you know, everybody wants our kids to have what they need, but like, we don't have a person dedicated to this, so this falls on our business office to manage building rentals. Well, we have people that want to rent our buildings all the time, you know? So we kind of have some parameters. If it's a big commercially make some money thing, other than Drake May, he's coming because that's a good one to have. The other ones are like, no, it's not worth the work. It's not worth what they do to the facility, cleaning up after and all of that. But it's a really big job, I will say that.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it actually sounds like you might find it easier to have somebody do that full-time on the town side, rather than, they'd obviously have to work to make sure your teams would take.
Correct. Correct.
Beyond that, you could kind of wash your hands of it.
And to be, just to be honest, protecting of the space too, because we have to think about, so we have to hire site managers to be there too, to make sure that our building is secure and they're not going into other places where they're not supposed to be. So there's a lot that goes into it. There really is.
Well, it's
And
still a
yes,
town
it would be
employee,
great.
So hopefully they would still do their job properly. I'm not really thinking
Right.
that would be an issue, but I appreciate the answer. Thanks.
Any other question? George?
Not a question, but I'll just say, I'm familiar with the FMX system now with basketball, and I mean, I think we're working through things, and it was a good improvement to put it in, and now we're just going to keep improving how we use it. Like, Kelly's been great. She was quick with replies and everything, so I think that was a good improvement, and we just keep improving it, and good things will happen.
Absolutely. And we are. We're here to work with everybody. We want the kids to be able to come in and use those things, but it is challenging. But the system has definitely improved, and I've heard from the community members that it's easier that way as well. So we're getting there. Always room for improvement.
Before we just go make our vote on the number, there is, I just noticed that we just got the warrant articles tonight, and there is one relative to, a citizen petition relative to Bryn Mawr and parking in that general area. Can you just, because that was your home for a lot of years as principal.
It was.
Can you just, I haven't really read the context of it, there's something about signage and parking and,
Yeah, so I was here when they went through the warrant articles at the last meeting. That was the first I had heard of it, honestly. I did get one complaint from a person who lives on that street. It is a narrow street, and parking, especially this year, has been difficult with the snow. So I think you know, right, we added a parking lot at the end of the Bryn Mawr Field, right, that comes off of that street. And in large part, when you can park there, that will be full back to the tree line, for instance, at dismissal at Bryn Mawr School. Well, we've had how many weeks this year that people couldn't do that? And so I do think someplace in there it said that it wasn't due to the snow, but it was due to, it might not have been due to the snow on the street, I guess, but it was definitely due to the snow on the field. But it is problematic, and there would be times that I would be literally walking up and down that street to make sure that people didn't park there, or I made these funny little tickets at one point, and, ooh, you're gonna get in trouble trying to be funny about it. But it's a tight spot. But I agree that cars shouldn't be able to park on both sides because it's very difficult to get a vehicle down. But I think on one side, it seems to me, as not a public safety person, but it seems it's still safe, as long as it's, there's not parking on both sides of the street, which I think has been the big issue. There was also an item on there about a generator. Did you have any questions about
we
the
just got it tonight,
generator?
so I haven't had a chance to look at
okay.
it. If you want to speak to it, I mean, well, we've.
Okay, yeah, there is a request for $314,000 for a generator at Auburn High School. The Auburn High School generator is on its last leg, and we have tried to save it, but it was not, I found out, new with the high school. It was the generator from some time ago. So it has given its best, it has given its all, but the high school is considered our main evacuation site in town, and we certainly do not have the funding to do that, but I think it's imperative that we get a new generator for Auburn High School.
Motion to recommend the town manager recommendation budget of $33,968,107.
Second.
Motion.
Second.
And a second from Patrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all the support.
Before you go, we're going to ask you about CIP, too.
Oh, CIP, sure.
Unless you want to come back next week and see us again.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't have my
Second to last finance committee. There's only, Chair, sorry. There's only one, like, new item on there, and it's the sporting equipment. I was curious what that was. The rest of it seems relatively,
How, oh, is that, how much is that for? Is it like 30,000?
30,000.
Okay, so when we had proposed our initial budget at 4.19, that was going to require us to make a $100,000 cut. They wanted us to get it down $100,000. So we went back to the drawing board, and I was able to, with Mrs. Stanik's help, we decreased some funding for new positions and the like, which got us to about $60,000 to lower the budget. The town is helping us out with that $30,000 to make up for the difference, getting us to the initial requested $100,000 cut. So that wasn't in our initial CIP, but that was part of the
It was originally in the operating budget. They moved it to CIP.
correct, yeah.
Any other questions on CIP? Okay. very
Great.
good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on our agenda is Bay Path.
Good evening. I'm Kyle Brenner, Superintendent of Bay Path. I have our business manager here tonight, and I could literally say ditto. Many of the budget concerns we have are the same that Auburn is facing. Wonderful job. So I'm here to present our FY 2027 proposed Bay Path budget. This is based on the governor's budget, subject to change as it makes its way through the House. I'll start with our core values. We did a lot of work with all our stakeholders on establishing these this year, and really Own It kind of covers everything under that. If you own something, you strive for excellence, you have an attitude of gratitude, and you act with integrity. And everybody should just be kind. So that is throughout all our building, and we're really pushing that. Our budget statement for the summary is highlighted here. You can see our Chapter 70 is $14,902,363. Our school choice assessment, we take that out, that's projected to be $350,533. Our assessment minimum contribution is $12,459,053. We have no assessment above the minimum. Again, we've kept it at the minimum local contribution. You'll see, though, although it is at the minimum, there have been increases to our towns on what they must contribute. Again, I think this is the second year in a row we're using our our interest earnings to pay down that. So we've got $150,000 that we're contributing from our interest earnings, and we continue to pay down OPEB with $75,000 from our E&D as well, for a total operation budget of $27,235,883. Our total transportation costs for FY27 is $2,169,008. You can see our Chapter 71 is $1,621,678. That's about 75%. So they initially started this year upwards of 80%. We're still nowhere near our 100% contribution on that, but we came down to 75. We offset that with our transportation reimbursement fund of $100,000, bringing the assessment to our towns to $447,331 on that. Our principal and interest stays relatively the same for a total of $1,550,428 for an FY27 budget assessment of $30,955,319. Add back in our school choice, that comes out to a total operating budget of $31,305,852. You can see on slide 4 the impact on Bay Path, and this is a year-over-year comparison for FY27 and FY26. Our Chapter 70 has increased by $336,557. The minimum contributions from our towns has increased $845,258 for a total increase of $1,181,815. Financial information, again, we just summarized some of them. I've stated already, although the assessments are at the minimum, it's important to note the required minimum contributions each town must contribute have increased collectively by $845,258. Our member town's transportation assessment has decreased by $52,670 due to the increase in the regional transportation reimbursement funds and the allocation of the $100,000 from that. So again, we just highlight everything. Chapter 70 is 14.9 million, school choice just over 350K, 71 busing aid is 1.6 million. And again, we show our E&D of 75,000 as well as the interest earned going back in. I will say that we are level funded from FY26. When we level funded that, in our initial budget forecast, we were 1.6 million over. When the governor released her budget, that brought it down a little bit, but we were still about 1.3 million over the budget. So the next slide kind of highlights that. We knew there wasn't an appetite for an increase above or an assessment above the minimum contributions. So we went back and we did a multi-departmental review, equitable review of every department to maintain the highest level of student services that we can, and we came back within the minimum contribution of that. Our health insurance is the largest factor in our increase this year. We're part of the Hampshire Group Insurance Trust. There's 73 communities that are members of that. Last year, when we were here, we presented that there was an 18% increase in our health care that we accounted for in the budget. Shortly after the start of the new plan year, July 1st, about midway through July, the trust contacted the 73 communities and said, we need to meet because there has to be a 20% increase on that. So that was unbudgeted. The result of a no vote would have been the trust would have gone bankrupt and we would all be self-funded. So essentially, the 18 went to 40% increase, about a 38% increase. So that our portion of that was $750,000 for this year. We carry that into next year, and we don't anticipate any more. We know that it's going to be another double-digit increase, 12.48% increase in our health care going forward. We continue to use our SOA funds for the intended purposes of professional development to address social and emotional needs of all our students. My colleague, Dr. Chamberlain, talked about that. It's increasing year over year on that, so provide not only services but PD for all our faculty and staff on that. The budget also includes contractual wage increases for all employees, all our CBAs. Currently, we're negotiating 4 CBAs, our teachers, our paras, our custodians, and our secretaries as well. This is the freshman seat allocation for FY27. Again, it's based off the school-age children population of each one of our 10-member towns, which totals for all 10, 16,485,000 students. We take the ratio of each town. Auburn's share of that is 15.1%, which equates to 50 students of the 330 students that will be enrolled next year as freshmen. Again, my colleague talked about the lower enrollment. Statewide has seen a near 30,000 student reduction in school-age children on that. We do have a wait list. We are fortunate that we don't face lower student enrollment year over year. We currently have just over 300, close to 350 students on a wait list. This was the first year. This follows into foundation enrollment. This was the first year that we held the state-mandated lottery system for accepting students into the freshman year. Foundation enrollment is the total number of students by town who are currently enrolled as of October 1st each year. So this stays roughly the same, an increase of 1. Auburn's total foundation enrollment, FY26 was 131, projected FY27, 144, so a difference of 13 students. So that is a large contributing factor to the increase in minimum local contributions. This shows all our 10-town assessments, minimum contribution, foundation enrollment, transportation assessment, capital pop for debt services, and capital improvements, of which we have none forecast. It's a little bit clearer in the next slide. Just for Auburn, you can see the 2026 and the 2027 comparison here. So minimum contribution has increased by $284,861, or a 18.65%. There's no assessment above the minimum. Transportation costs actually went down 1.74, and debt service went up $7,899 for a total increase of $291,840 for the town of Auburn. And that's it. Any questions?
Questions? I'm going to ask my question. So I think I ask every year, and I certainly relative to the school committee, because our next budget that comes up, and it's always tied, is the Norfolk agricultural budget. And,
Okay.
Every year, we've had additional students going. This year, we're going to be looking to spend $135,000 to send X number of students to Norfolk. And I don't know if your other 9-member communities are facing similar things, because Bay Path does not offer any sort of agricultural program. So it seems to be a gap that isn't going away. It was first heard of it probably 5-6 years ago. You know, it was one student was going, nobody really knew what this was. You know, where was Norfolk Aggie? Like, can't believe someone would want to ride a bus for that long in the period of a day. But it's grown in popularity. Kids are having a great time. Is there any discussions? I know you've added programs over the last several years in the multiple veterinary and other places, successful programs. Is there any discussion for the future as this becomes a more popular avenue for students?
Sure, absolutely. We would love to add more programs, but adding more programs is increased money. To build those programs, we continuously review our 23 programs. The newest one that we added was diesel technology. As you mentioned, we added veterinary sciences, so that gets us into the animal field. With diesel technology, that kind of gets us into ag mechanics. So there is a hole in central Massachusetts for agricultural, vocational or agricultural education. We seem to be located in a split, so anybody kind of west of us, Spencer, is sending to Smith Aggie out in Northampton, and anybody on this side is going down to Walpole. Yes, who wants to sit on a bus that long, and the exorbitant transportation costs alone. We do hear continuously as we go to our 10 towns for these presentations, when are you going to add Aggie? Again, that cost. And we also know that we have a wait list, so if we could build to that, we would. When they renovated the school, the MSA or MSBA would not allow for expansion based on wait lists. The Massachusetts Association of Vocational Administrators have since lobbied and changed that, so as schools come up for renovations or new schools, they will allow an account for increased enrollment, increased student size based on historic wait lists. We missed that because we had our renovation not too long ago. The layout doesn't accommodate an easy add to the building because we're surrounded by our student parking, so we would infringe. Going up is cost prohibitive. There's a couple of different things that we looked at. The latest round of grant funding for CTE expansion allowed up to $5 million to expand programming. We did look at that. We got an off-site partner. We went for that. Only $3 million of that 5 could be used for capital expense, though, which was cost prohibitive for the location that we were looking at. But we continuously address that, and we look to. And, you know, if the state ever moves to fill the gap, we are proponents that Bay Path is the place where you should build it. Although our building is limited, we do sit on about 300 acres of land. So we'd be ripe for another construction. All the infrastructure's in place with administrators. We know it. We know how to add programs. We could do it there. So we advocate at the state level, and anytime that comes up, that we should be the location for Central Mass Agricultural School to stop students from, you know, the cost is there. The desire is strong that they'll sit on the bus, but yeah, an hour or 2 hours plus on a bus is a little bit. So we continuously look at our program where we can, and diesel was part of that, and animal science was very much part of that too, to get into that realm and address the needs locally.
Certainly, I mean, there's a cost, and we're not saying the cost is going away, but we would rather, you know, fund additional funding towards Bay Path than
We would
pay-
take that money
pay for
and
transportation
absolutely.
vendors and or tuition to you know, an out of district school. So just glad you're looking at it. You know, again, I know nothing about agricultural programs, but I imagine it's
There's a strong desire.
some sort of barns. You know, it's probably not a lot of classroom space. A lot of practical skills relative to.
There's a whole agricultural business now. So our farms now become, you know, destinations where people are going, and, you know, yeah, there's a whole business there. And we've worked with Senator Fatman, and we've gone to the roundtable discussions on that as well, so.
And just as you mentioned, diesel, you know, fleet is a budget that comes to us on a regular basis. And I think our DPW folks and actually the fire department have one of your co-op students that they're grabbing each by an arm, and they both want them because of the success of that program. So,
Yeah.
you know, kudos to the folks
thank
in
you.
those
Yeah.
shops and the co-op programs that, it's nice to see them back in the community. It's great that they're out of, you know, private businesses and learning the trades, but when we actually harness them for some municipal benefits, that's a double win in my mind.
Absolutely. No, I remember that picture. That was great. I was sitting over at the fire department. But yeah, we'll have more. We just started. This is the first year we opened diesel. And as anticipated, there was a wait list of freshmen going in there. And then we just did a tour today, and all those freshmen were up to their elbows inside diesel engines at one of our own school buses. So we're keeping costs down by having them, you know, work on our own fleet, small fleet of 4, you know, school buses on that. So, yeah.
Patrick?
Through the chair, I just wanted to clarify, when you went over the budget for the debt service, something triggered in my mind, and I didn't ask the question right away because I feel like I know the answer, but I can't pinpoint it. The $7,800 increase, I know within the last couple of years, we've talked about some debt that's going to be occurring, and has that debt now occurred, or is there a borrowing that you're about to do, or this borrowing goes out another 7 or 8 years?
That borrowing goes to 2044.
So this is the borrowing, and it's still got another 15 years or more? Okay.
That was for the renovation.
Right. For some reason, I thought in the last couple of years, you acknowledged that you were about to take on more debt, and I just wanted to clear that in my own head.
Nope.
So this is the current debt, and there's nothing in the moment that is extraordinary or a large purchase that's coming in the next decade,
No.
right, that you're aware of? Right.
Yes, and knock on wood, that, yeah,
So
doesn't
this
pop
is,
up.
I think maybe the discussion was that we're halfway through it.
Right.
Are we halfway through the debt service?
No, it started in 2018.
Okay, so we're almost halfway, at the halfway mark.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay.
Stephen?
Going back to the agriculture, it seems to me that some of the future is going to be hydroponics, and it would be I don't know if any of the technical schools are working on that, but, you know, growing food indoors with solar panels and, you know, building, the construction. It seems to be a perfect fit for vocational schools.
It does. So several of the schools have done that, and they've got hydroponics. That fits into a horticultural program or, that type of program, which we don't have yet. So to expand the program, we need classroom space. We were able to add diesel within because two of our programs, business technology and marketing, were two separate programs, low enrolled, not, very concerning, and held their own. And through attrition, one of the teachers left and went to another school to teach marketing there. We looked at that as an opportunity to combine the two programs. The frameworks are very similar for business tech and marketing. So we combined those two programs into one really robust program with 3 teachers rather than 2 separate programs. And that's called Being Business, Entrepreneurship, and Marketing. That created a space where we could move our ISSN program, Information Support Services and Networking, which was in our old small engine repair shop, which has the grease traps and it was all designed, up into a much more appropriate space that was converted by our students. When marketing moved out, we made a state-of-the-art IT program in there. They moved upstairs into that, vacated small engine, which was a perfect fit for diesel technology. We brought it back to the original use, moved everything in there. We did all of that with a capital skills grant of $750,000, so no cost to anyone, grant funded, state-of-the-art program in alignment with agricultural diesel, which are tractors and this heavy equipment diesel, excavators and all that, as well as over-the-road trucking with ATG, one of the top 10 Freightliner dealers in the country. So they came in, they gave us curriculum, they gave us the technical support of how to lay out all the equipment, state-of-the-art equipment that we were able to purchase. And if you're ever in the neighborhood and want to see it, you're welcome to come in. It's a beautiful location. We have one teacher that came on board, fully licensed. That was great. And we have another local female instructor, fully certified diesel tech, who's coming on board at the start of next year to expand enrollment in that.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Anybody else? Okay. You want to handle the motion?
Just
No question.
to Karen, the budget book, I'm guessing, was just pre-presentation, but I'm assuming we should be recommending the amount in the presentation? Right. Motion to recommend a budget for APATH of $2,098,218.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Next up, we have Norfolk Agriculture. We had an updated one in our packet for this evening. Aaron, you going to handle Norfolk Aggie for us?
So the original budget recommendation was a level funded until we got a little bit more information about the costs. So there are 4 students that are currently attending. There's one that's going to be graduating, but there were not any additional students who applied, so we're going to go down from 4 to 3 students. So that's the reason for the reduction. So we're still estimating costs, but we're estimating $135,000, which $105,000 it would be for the tuition and the $30,000 for the transportation.
Questions? No?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Motion from Michael and a second from Patrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And lastly for the evening, we've got the Auburn Youth Commission.
Normal Flash from the Auburn Youth Commission, and This is Peter Jones. I have stepped down as chairman of the Auburn Youth Commission after 20-some-odd years. I got a lot of things going on, and Peter has been very knowledgeable and willing to step up. So I just wanted to come before you and show my appreciation for the increase of our budget, a little over 3% to $233,000. And with the addition that I always put on, that is if there is a fall meeting, because we are still underfunded as far as what the contracted services are that Auburn Youth and Family Services provides, as to what the cost actually is for those services and what our budget is actually going through. Sally and Andy are here to answer any questions as far as Auburn Youth goes. There is additional funding. I talked with Dory, we met with Dory the other day, that is coming through the state that may help supplement that at this time. But that isn't money that we can count on. And again, as my last request here before you, is at some point in time, we need to make an additional one lump sum, substantial, to address all the shortages, because this has been going on almost for the last 15 years. And we need to bring it up. Everybody knows, and everybody, what Auburn Youth and Family Services provides. And just because we have contracted services and we have certain numbers that we go, they don't turn people away. And under those things, they're still in the schools. They're still doing the counseling above and beyond everything else that they do. And until that is addressed, I think we always have to make that request. And I know we have to be fiscally conservative and we have to watch what the budgets are, but I think to not do that for the service that they, go above and beyond to provide, I think we should at some point try to address that. And Peter will be the guy that will come before you. I'm still going to be on the committee. I'm still going to be going and doing, but I'm just, a lot of my time, it's mostly grandkids. I've got a few when we're running around, and there's a bunch of other things that I've been getting involved with. So I had to step aside, and Peter will be taking over that position. So if there's any questions, Sally and Andy are here to answer them as far as Auburn Youth goes.
Great. Thank you for your time as chair. And Peter, did you have anything you wanted to
No, I think
introduce?
Norm said it all and said it well.
Questions relative to the budget before we bring up Auburn Youth? So I guess my questions are relative, and over the years, this is a budget that I've sort of had a tough time wrapping my head around, because it's a fully funded budget that goes to a town committee, who then basically in turn takes their money and sends it over to Auburn Youth and Family Service for providing services. So it's always been one that I've sort of struggled to figure out. And even as recently as I did a little bit of the Mike Marshall, I nerded out a little bit and went online and went and looked to see what other youth commissions in similar communities. Shrewsbury seems to be same model. They just send everything towards Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services. Westboro seemed to have a little bit more, and again, this was just by looking quickly at posted commission agendas and meetings. And yours, largely, and it could just be a default, a lot of them just, every meeting agenda said, discuss budget, discuss budget, discuss budget. The other ones, Westboro, it was a little more robust as to what their discussions were. Just a thought for the future as to what the topics of discussion may be at your meetings.
Okay, and when I was first on the Youth Commission, we used to, it wasn't, everything did not go to Auburn Youth. We used to do like bike safety week days, bike helmets, and there were a few other things that we had additional funding for, but overall, the budget, based on the contract that we have with Auburn Youth, it took over anything that we had, so.
And that sort of was going to be my next point. When I looked, again, I didn't go too far, but Westboro had drug reduction stuff. It had teen driver safety. It had, again, just a quick look at it. There was some other things beside the counseling piece, which right now seems to be the entirety of your budget. So, is it something programmatically that you would like to do through the commission?
Absolutely.
Or is that something that is being covered by the funding over, I guess that would be my question for Auburn Youth. Are these programs that you're offering as well?
Yeah, it's not covered, and I've talked, with them and told the other members of the commission that we used to do that, and I would love to get back to that, because, again, everything we do to go for the it's because we do have the contract that came through the town through our commission, and that's why the funding goes there. But to be able to go and do those other events, we would love to get involved in doing that, because there are so many ideas out there from other places, and to be actively involved. But right now, we're just trying to get the funding to cover what we have for contract. To go additional, to add those other programs, if we're going to talk to those could be, anywhere from tens of thousands of dollars to whatever, if you get involved with the drug thing, if it's a safety thing, that's relatively setting up programs and stuff, and that's not a real big expense. It's, administering it could be most of what the cost would be, but we would love to be able to get back into that if we could. But right now, financially, that's just not possible, because we would just be taking money away from the contracted services that we provide, or they provide.
And the contract that you'll sign for the upcoming year will be the amount that's approved through the budget, is that? So I looked at last year's contract.
Well, our next meeting, because in the spring when we have our meeting, that's when we go for the budget. When we get to the fall, we actually go and we look at the contract every time, and we like to meet with them we meet with Sally, and we see if there's anything that needs to be changed. And we have made a couple small changes over the years, but the services they're providing now go a long way to helping the community, working in the schools and doing the counseling that they do. So there's nothing that we would eliminate. It would be looking, if it was anything, it would be looking at more things that may need to be added for services that they would be more than willing to provide, but it's just to give them some direction as to where we would like them to focus that attention to.
Chair. So one of the things that we've done this year versus previous years, we've asked department heads, and I recognize that you guys are not town employees, but we've asked department heads to come in and give what their actual request is. I think in the past, often the town manager request and the department request were exactly the same, and that seemed suspicious. But I guess what I'll say for next year is just put together what your actual request is.
Okay.
We'd love to see it. I mean, it may not be what the town manager recommends, but part
At
of the...
what point, how far in advance would you like us to come with a meeting to make that? Because when do you, I know generally where it is, but I want a timeline as to when we would have to present that or make that request to you.
So to Michael's point,
yeah.
the departments, when they come before the budget, so they'll meet with the town manager and say, we want, $500,000. And these are the reasons why we want $500,000. And then there's agreements and discussions, and town manager makes their recommendations. So there's two columns listed here before us. One is the department or the commission's request, and the other is what the town manager is recommending to the finance committee. And part of doing that is the other departments have been sort of doing an introduction, and it can be done in conjunction with Auburn Youth and Family. This is who we are. These are the services we provide. These are the number of students we've helped. These are the programs we would like to do this year. We would like to do a driver safety. We would like to do a drug reduction program, whatever might be out there, and make your presentation to say, this is what we would hope to do in the future. We have some latitude towards our recommendations.
I assume you guys have like a town employee who serves as sort of like the liaison to town administration?
We have not, when we meet usually directly with the town manager.
Okay.
Should we volunteer, Danielle?
Yeah, sure.
All in favor?
No, I guess what I'm trying to say is, my suspicion is that, at least on budgets like this that are not prepared by a town employee, the reason that there's no difference is that the town manager is the person
The
who's...
one that actually-
Yeah,
yes.
and so she is the department from that
Yep.
perspective. maybe, maybe that's not the right spot for it.
She
but
be
if-
the
but
one
if-
to talk
But if
to?
the youth commission is going to come in front of us and make a presentation, even if it's not the department request, I would still love to hear what it is that you
Sure,
guys
I would love to do that
think would
myself.
be the amount that's needed.
Absolutely.
To do both, more with Auburn Youth and Family Services and the other programs that I'm sure you guys would love to do, but you've essentially been told you have a budget of X and 100% of X goes to Y, and so you can't do Z. So I'll just, hey, I will regret asking, but I'll be here anyway. So.
Things might change. I have a question. You mentioned driver safety, and then you said the thing about bicycle safety. And I remember, I think some of my kids did some of that stuff. They're all older now, but my other question was actually for the high school, whether we're teaching driver's ed or if that's been, is that inside or outside? It's all outside. Okay. That scares me. I think it should be, I think part of making an adult is teaching them how to drive. I don't know where that comes into the budget, but I think it really should be there. And I think I was talking to somebody that was, I'm not going to say they were complaining, but they were asking about charging the kids to park at the high school, which I'm sure is because, okay, well, she seemed to think there was. Although she did say she went into the website and tried to pay and she couldn't. So I guess she was under the impression she was obliged to, but she wasn't going to raise a flag.
That was the one case social media was wrong.
Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, I
wrong.
personally, I mean, I would like to see, like we're talking about, we need to grow food, we should have an agricultural program. We need to teach kids how to drive as well as fix the cars. I think this is a very bad place to cut, whenever that got cut, which has probably been years ago, but it should be put back in, for sure.
Any other questions I think we'll have Auburn Youth and Family, Sally and Andy's here in support. If you want to come up and just give an idea as to what services and how the Youth Commission funding is utilized.
I need to apologize, but I actually have another meeting that I need to go to.
Oh,
Thank you, Noel.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Andy Paquette. I'm the treasurer for Auburn Youth Family Services. Sally wants me to talk about the finance side first, but some of the things that you're talking about, I'm going to probably steal some of her thunder. It's like we're coming here, I could say, at the right time, because if you're aware, we are undergoing a strategic planning process as well, where all the things that you're bringing up are going to be part of that process with the hopes of guiding us going into the future. So it's one of those things where some of your questions, I would say the answer is a yes and. It's yes, we want to continue providing the services that we're providing and look at what is the community needs and wants, and to continue to either reinstate those programs, start those programs, enhance what it is that we currently have. So some of the things you're talking about, we know what our needs are. We've always put together, we always start when we build a budget with a needs-based budget. I can tell you since I've been on the board, we have been presenting budgets that have had deficits requiring us to use our reserves. We have had shortfalls. I say shortfalls, deficits, I mean, we have the money in our reserves, but it's, they can only go so far. So we've been running a trend of about between $30,000 and $35,000 shortfalls for the past 3 years. That's just not sustainable. And as Norm said earlier, once we reach that cap of the hours for the contract, the businessman in me says, we should stop, but we don't. We continue on, and we have exceeded the contract I'm looking at from 22. We exceeded the contract 624 hours. 23 was 534 hours. 24 was 534 again. And 25, I think we have updated ones, but at the time that I did this for Youth Commission was exceeding 739 hours. And as of right now, we are probably over already, and we're not even into...
That's like an additional 15 weeks of work.
Exactly. And we're looking at that we took an average, oh, sorry, go ahead,
How many hours are we contracted for, just for context?
650, right?
So,
We're contracted for 500 hours to the schools, which we've made it sort of general, so they can, whatever schools have the needs, we've made it so we can go in there. And then there's another 150 hours that we do at the agency as well, for families, we do some even families. So 650, but I think we have 29 more hours until we're finished with the 500 hours. And we're already over on that, the number of people that we're seeing at the agency.
So, and we are very appreciative, we've been working with the town manager regarding accessing, whether it was ARPA funding that has helped us, the opioid funding, which it is that we know now, that with research with Chief Coleman, we've been able to access that to, in a sense, help us from prior year overages to now. I believe we're going to have some discussions regarding the potential use of those funds to continue going forward. I'll say one of the challenges, though, is, as we said, how long sustaining would those be? And also, quite honestly, one of the things that I've heard since I've been on the board is like, we've been an organization that have always made it work. When you're talking the services that we're providing, we shouldn't be. We should be able to do what it is that we need to do. So several years ago, when Julie Jacobson was the town manager and Dr. Brunel was the chair, we had a meeting where we actually talked about what Mr. LaFlash referred to as I'm calling it like the paradigm shift in funding to realign what it is that our needs are. And at that time, it was talked about an additional $200,000. And there was discussion and buy-in and understanding that, yes, that is something they would like to do. Budget started to go through, and then so they dialed that back to meeting us halfway, and then that was even cut a little more. So understanding the challenges that we have as a town and as a community, and you have in your responsibility as a finance committee, that's what we are talking about, because one of the challenges that we've had operationally is keeping staff. We don't offer benefits, so we looked at a benefits package. We were talking about, realigning our salaries to make it competitive so that we don't lose the people that we lose. So it's those things where to keep us a long sustaining organization to, I'm going to say, not that we're doing it wrong, but to do it even more right, are the types of things that we're looking about doing also through our strategic planning process. So, we are having the discussions financially regarding the opioid funding, is that being a funding source to potentially fill the gap. But it's, again, I'm going to say even when I talk about the service side of a yes and, I'm going to say on the funding side, it's the same thing. It's a yes, we appreciate the opioid funding, and we need to fund the operations so that we're continuing to provide the services and what it is to, the needs of the community.
Just in terms of services, we always do that. We believe in the collaborative approach and working with the entire community. So when we're talking about services, I always, I ask Dr. Chamberlain if I can come to the principals meeting, so I'm meeting with principals and talking to them about what the needs are, not only in the schools, but with families. And also with the Youth Commission, we do have meetings where we talk about, what services are we going to put in the contract? What do we need to change? What do we make different? And we always, when we're doing services, we kind of look at it as the family as a whole. So we may be giving mental health counseling to a family, but then when the counselor's meeting with that child in the school or whatever, you may find out there's other needs. Somebody may be losing housing. Somebody may need food, so we'll, connect them to the food pantry. Somebody may need help with heat. Somebody may need legal services. So we do all that. And so, the services you get is the whole ball of wax at Auburn Youth, all our other services that we do too. And we are extremely grateful for the building. We got moved into the building. I think I talked a little bit about it last year when I was up here in 2001. And that building is just such a blessing. It welcomes so many people and helps so many people, and we wouldn't have gotten that without the town and the original committee that started that, and all the things that come with it. We're grateful for the services that we get from DPW and the other town departments. We work very collaboratively with everybody.
I don't know many organizations that have the gifts that we have in this community. So thank you. I'd be happy to answer other questions about services.
Questions for,
Please fill out we have a survey going for community needs. If you wanted to, please weigh in on that and fill out the survey. Our first strategic planning meeting is on April 14th, and we have a good group of people from all walks of the community that are coming together to have these discussions.
yeah, I guess I would just say, overall as a strategy, as you're talking strategic planning, is, you don't have to really convince us to a degree as to what, but it's largely, it's town meeting members that may be watching this that can't, aren't able to, come to your meetings, or, it's really selling what the needs are. And I love using the library as the example for someone that maybe hasn't been to the library in years because their kids are a little bit older and, they're not studying for something, doing a research. To hear the library come in and say, this is how many visitors we had last year. This is how many programs we offered last year. These are the, what we're doing with the funding that we're asking for is huge. Because otherwise you would have people in town that would say, who goes to the library? I've never been to the library. I've been to the library in 20 years. Why do we have a library? We should close it. But after you watch those presentations, you're like, wow, we should be investing more money in that facility, in that organization. So I would suggest thinking for next year and for the future, really marketing, the commission marketing itself as to its goals and aspirations, and Auburn Youth is your deliverer, I guess, of the services that you're hoping to provide to the youth in town. So,
while I don't have the numbers in front of me, I can tell you from my experience working in the juvenile court for the last 10 years, is that when you provide these services to these kids, you're preventing larger problems. You're preventing these kids from going into crisis or perhaps becoming delinquents. And also, when you're not paying wages on par with other organizations, you have the turnover. And then when you have turnover, the kids have to start all over again with a new person, and that sets them back. So I think it's very important that you consider this funding as a preventative measure.
and that's a great point. We've brought it up in past years. We've heard from the school department that the services provided assist them, so they're able to deliver education for students that aren't, like Dr. Chamberlain said, if a kid's having a crisis, they're not focusing on what's going on in that classroom and maybe acting out. We've heard from the police chief say, when those kids have an outlet and receive services, they don't deal with those kids often. The kids that don't partake tend to be the kids they see. Fire department on calls for service where they may have to bring kids who are having, in crisis mode, having the ambulance go out of town to bring them to a facility. There's a cost. That's a great point, and something, to, again, bring your partners in. The school department stayed late in the evening to support you, and I certainly appreciate that. I'm sure you do as well. But as you make those pitches in the future, just my recommendation to really kind of sell the organization and clearly define what it is. Like I said, all the years I've been on the committee, it's been a struggle for me to really figure out what Auburn Youth Commission does, and maybe look outside to some of the other commissions in the area, as we do with finance and other things. We all try and learn collaborative from our peers.
I just wanted to add to that. You were in the audience earlier when I mentioned what I did to the school department. One of the things I just want to put on the table is, the world is changing, change is inevitable. And I think to shift the paradigm of maybe the goal setting or the way you viewed something years ago, and that's why when I sat here and listened, and as we pointed out, the budget goes through the town manager, but yet one of your resources is the school department. So why not put a bug in the ears of the finance people who are looking at grants and things, and now that we've done that, we've said, oh gee, maybe when I am looking at grants, it's going to trigger, because it's maybe with all the responsibilities that we have and all that we look at, it might not be there, so you refresh the mindset. I suggest you do the same thing. Get a little bit of creative in some of the resources that you're using and that benefit you, and see if there aren't roads that can lead you back to a solution.
Anything else for these folks?
One more thing on the next year's perhaps larger ask. I believe that if you compare our numbers to Shrewsbury's, they're doing a whole lot more for less here than in Shrewsbury. It's my understanding that their budget is relatively huge.
And those are good comparisons. you know, fires come before us with, you know, what other communities spend on overtime, and, you know, those comparisons are
That's
helpful.
an excellent point, because we were just discussing how the school system manages to do a phenomenal job, and they're not even in the top 50%. So I'm sure if they're doing it, and Auburn Youth and Family, I mean, I'm sure we've got a lot of people excelling in Auburn, and so that's very valid. Good comparison.
Can I ask, because I know you get a lot of outside fundraising and things, and a lot of donations are in kind, which are just going straight to families and such. But what percentage of your budget is this budget? I don't know if that's the right.
It's their contract.
I know, but they have their own budget.
I think Andy's got it right there on his phone somewhere.
Got it.
It's probably about 85%. Honestly, our fundraising, I'm going to say, only so many times we can go to the well, you know, and we've had to make some changes regarding the fundraising opportunities that we've had. We've supplemented those, I'd say, by the loss of some of the fundraising opportunities we do seek out grants, and so we do have grants that are helping out, whether it be the food pantry or overall services and stuff, but this contract is close to 85% of our funding source.
And if I recall correctly from last year, because I know a lot of insurance covers mental health stuff, but some of that stuff you're not eligible for one reason or another.
Yes, you can.
Well, one of the things that we're looking at, I recently, my clinical director of 34 years retired in December. We have a clinical, you can't hear, can you hear me? My clinical director of 34 years retired, so we have hired a clinical consultant from Anna Maria College, and we have somebody in line to go into that position. Lost my train of thought. What was the question?
Charging for Medicaid.
Oh, yes, okay. Under the strategic plan, we are looking into that. Other diversified models of revenue, so that'll be part of the strategic plans. But right now, no, we don't take insurance payments. My clinical director did. And that there was nothing, our budget, she was an independent contractor for 34 years, so there was nothing in our line item budget in that, so now we're replacing that this year. And it's a very critical piece, but we have a great plan, and I'm very enthusiastic about the strategic planning process that, you know, we're going to come out with a lot of good recommendations, which we will share with the community.
Patrick?
You triggered a thought in my mind, because you've been with us forever, it seems. The critical position that you're about to lose, is your position currently are you retiring soon? Will we see you next budget season? I'm just saying, because I thought
I'll answer on her behalf. She's never retiring.
Oh, okay.
I haven't made a decision about
You
that. I
haven't made
mean,
a
it's
decision,
definitely in, you know, we're going to talk, you know, we definitely have a succession plan.
Right, well, that's what
okay?
I was more
My heart
implying.
and soul is in Auburn Youth and Family Services. My name is on the building. It's very hard for me to unravel the layers of the onion.
Sure.
You know, but I'm very confident in my board, and they're a great board, and they make great decisions, and
See,
my
why I always
staff
go
is
right to
great.
the
I got
source.
great staff. I really got wonderful staff and great partners. I love the school. I'm going to miss Beth an awful lot. And you guys too. You know, I feel comfortable, believe it or not. I don't like public speaking, but I feel comfortable because I've been here a lot.
Anything else? Michael, you want to make the...
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Okay, motion to recommend the town manager's recommendation of $231,233. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for your feedback. We really appreciate it.
Okay. So Danielle provided us tonight with three, you were busy, 3 sets of meeting minutes, previous meeting minutes. If there's no...
I got through 2 of them, and they were fine, so I have no...
Did you get through all 3? I looked at all 3.
Of course, yeah.
So if there's no questions on those three, we'll consider them to be
So moved.
so moved and adopted. All those rules, too. So next week, we just have the CIP, which we'll just have to review relatively quickly, because we've kind of got the input. The question was asked earlier, do we need the department heads to come back in, or do you think we give them the night off relative to CIP? Does anybody have any questions on CIP that they would want a particular department head to come in to speak to it, or?
I would just suggest, since we've had them here, that maybe if we can come up with a question, could we email them to get the answer in advance? I don't know that we need to bring everybody back in.
Yeah, I would just maybe suggest that if you have a question directed through...
Karen, right, email the CFO.
Email to the CFO, and then collectively, if she has to message something out to us, it can come out to all of us at once. So we're not-
Exactly, yeah.
Sounds good.
Rather work through email than pull all the department heads back in for 20 minutes.
I agree, because it wasn't,
Already
we
worked here
didn't have a
all day.
lot of in-depth stuff as we reviewed it as we went along, so I don't think there's anything...
I think we asked everybody about CIP when they were here, so.
Yeah.
Not unless somebody over the week, when they start to scrutinize CIP before next Wednesday, and they find something they want to question, they can reach out to Karen, and she can get that answer for us, so she's prepared.
Just don't wait till Tuesday.
And then next week, we'll also review the warrant articles. We did receive those tonight, so we have plenty of time to look through and review those. Any other questions or dates? Do we have dates? So town meeting is the 5th. Do we have any other dates that you think we're going to have to meet beyond the 8th?
I thought it was just next week, and then we would meet, if we had to,
On that
on
third.
town meeting, the day of town meeting.
Right, and then maybe the third Thursday of the, or
Our
Wednesday,
regular-
I'm sorry, of the,
Wednesday. So
Well,
that-
I would count the meeting in May as our May meeting. Why meet? Do you think we'll need to meet twice? Or would it be too early to do transfers?
Before the town meeting.
Yeah, before the town meeting. Would it be too much to put transfers in that meeting? Too soon,
we
too
start
soon?
early enough. But do you think we're going to need a meeting? We'll have to wait and see if we need a meeting in May. I mean, before the town
Yeah.
meeting.
Because when will it go to the select board? When do they, is that before?
There'll be this, we'll make our recommendations, and then the selectmen usually take it back after we've done
Take
it.
it back to us.
So before town meeting, they'll have seen it and voted.
And you'll provide us with that handy checklist chart, color-coded, of course? Okay. It's helpful. And Michael can keep track, and check them off as to what our three...
Responsibility. You have a lot of responsibility as a vice chair.
Test. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn in a second. All moved, so moved, good. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.